I will never forget my 3 weeks of medical volunteer in Vietnam. The weeks were filled with excitement of traveling to a country I had never been to before and making new friendships. Volunteering with IVHQ was an amazing experience. After arriving in Ho Chi Minh City, I immediately felt at home in the accommodation. It was tucked away from the center of the city, and each sunrise was so beautiful and peaceful. All of the nervousness I felt in the beginning went away because of how homey and welcoming the accommodation was and how nice the other volunteers were. The first few days consisted of getting to know the other volunteers and the volunteer coordinators, as well as learning more about the city and Vietnamese culture. It didn't take me long to make friends from all over the world. Together, we visited museums, learned some simple Vietnamese phrases, and even learned how to make some traditional Vietnamese dishes like spring rolls. Our volunteer placement was at an orthopedic hospital in the center of the city, and there was a huge contrast to the hospitals in the US. There was a lot to take in, and for the first time, I realized how much we take simple things like air conditioning, private patient rooms, and high-tech equipment for granted. As volunteers, our main responsibilities were mixing medications for the nurses, taking blood pressures, and doing simple wound care. There were so many different departments to help out in, including childcare and physical therapy. One of my favorite departments to help out in was wound care. This is where we use saline or iodine to clean stitches or small wounds. It was daunting at first, especially when the patients were clearly in pain from their wounds. But after some time, I got used to it and learned from the nurses what was the best way to minimize the pain for the patients. I also loved being in child's care department, where we would play with children who had special needs. They were so full of energy, and it was so heartwarming to play games with them and even help the nurses do stretches with them for physical therapy. The operation room was the most exciting room to be in. This is where we got to observe surgeries. I saw so many different surgeries ranging from ACL repairs, skin grafts, and bone fracture repairs. It was so exciting for me to be able to observe surgeries from start to finish so closely, which is something I never got to do before. I loved to be able to do all of these hands-on tasks and interact with the patients. Even though there was a language barrier, I could tell that the nurses and patients appreciated our help. One of the biggest perks of volunteering is that we were allowed a nap time in the middle of the day. That way we would never run out of energy. My stay in Vietnam didn't just consist of volunteering in a hospital. We were also encouraged to go on weekend trips with the other volunteers. Vietnam was such a beautiful and exciting country to explore. One weekend was spent at the Mekong Delta countryside. It was so serene, and it was really nice to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city. We floated on the Mekong Delta River and just enjoyed being in the nature of Vietnam. There is also so much to do in Ho Chi Minh City itself, with endless options of delicious local restaurants and shops. The city was never quiet, and there's always something to do. I learned so many new perspectives on medicine through this eye-opening experience. I learned how just because certain medical practices or techniques are different, it does not mean that they are wrong. Each country, culture, or society has different views and ways of treating patients, and being open to difference is one of the most important parts of growing and learning. During my 3 weeks, I saw numerous patients heal and get better, despite the fact that the equipment was much less high-tech than what I was used to seeing in the US. I realized that healthcare is not always about having the state-of-the-art technology. Sometimes it's just about having passion and dedication to heal a patient. I was so inspired by the doctors and nurses I shadowed and helped. I was even more inspired by the volunteer coordinators who were with us in the hospital, who helped us translate and make sure that we got to see and experience the most that we could. I want to thank Austin College for the opportunity to go on this GO Fellowship. It was truly an opportunity of a lifetime. I will forever cherish all of the memories that I made this summer in Vietnam.